Welcome to our channel, where secrets collide, power shifts, and every story pulls you into a world of high-stakes drama. Here, we dive deep into twisted alliances, hidden motives, and characters pushed to their absolute limits by betrayal, ambition, and rage. If you crave intense storytelling filled with shocking turns, psychological tension, and moral gray zones, you're exactly where you belong. Stay with us, because every episode uncovers another layer of truth, and nothing is ever as it seems. Hayley did not stumble upon the truth by chance. It revealed itself with cruel precision, at the exact moment she was most vulnerable. What she witnessed shattered not only her trust, but the entire architecture of control she believed she had built. Randy and Lynette, standing together in calculated alignment, were no longer separate threats. They were a single, deliberate force, and the realization struck Hayley with a violence far more devastating than any physical blow. The conspiracy was real, methodical, and designed with one clear objective: to erase her from the scheme surrounding Bill's fortune as if she had never existed. Shock quickly gave way to fury. The anger surged so intensely it momentarily eclipsed reason, burning through every memory she replayed with newfound clarity. Moments she once dismissed as coincidence now revealed themselves as coordinated steps. Subtle shifts in loyalty, information withheld at critical times, strategic delays that conveniently weakened her position, all of it pointed to a betrayal that had been unfolding long before she ever suspected danger. What hurt most was not the loss of power, but the humiliation of being outmaneuvered by people she had underestimated. Randy's motivation became disturbingly clear. His ambition had always been fueled by resentment toward Bill's legacy, toward those who inherited privilege without bloodshed, and toward Hayley herself, whose intelligence and adaptability had once threatened his relevance. Aligning with Lynette was not merely strategic, it was personal. Removing Hayley meant reclaiming dominance, rewriting the hierarchy in which he had long felt subordinate. His anger had fermented into something colder, more disciplined, allowing him to justify betrayal as necessity rather than treachery. Lynette, however, was driven by a quieter, more dangerous resolve. Her loyalty had never been rooted in emotion, but in survival. She understood the fragility of power and how swiftly alliances could collapse under pressure. Watching Hayley command attention and influence stirred a deep, unspoken fear that there would be no place left for her once the final division of assets was complete. Partnering with Randy was not an act of loyalty, but a calculated gamble, a choice between being consumed or becoming the one who devoured first. She convinced herself that betrayal was not cruelty, but foresight. As these motivations converged, Hayley found herself isolated within her own empire. The rage she felt toward Randy and Lynette was matched only by the anger she turned inward. She had built her identity on control, on the belief that she could anticipate every move and manipulate every outcome. To be blindsided so thoroughly forced her to confront an unbearable truth. She had mistaken confidence for invulnerability. That realization festered, transforming into a self-directed fury that sharpened her instincts and stripped away any remaining illusions of safety. The legacy Bill left behind became the battlefield upon which all unresolved conflicts now collided. His wealth was not merely financial, it represented validation, dominance, and victory over the past. For Hayley, securing it was proof that her sacrifices and moral compromises had been justified. For Randy, it was revenge against a system that had always excluded him. For Lynette, it was insurance against obscurity. Each believed they were owed a piece of Bill's empire, and that belief hardened into entitlement, eroding any remaining trace of conscience. As pressure mounted, paranoia seeped into every decision. Hayley became hyper-aware of her vulnerability, sensing traps in every silence and threats in every delay. The fury that once propelled her now risked consuming her entirely, pushing her toward impulsive moves that could expose her hand too early. She oscillated between restraint and retaliation, torn between dismantling the alliance quietly or striking back with enough force to ensure total annihilation. Every option carried consequences, and each consequence threatened to accelerate her downfall. Randy, emboldened by the secrecy of the alliance, began to overestimate his control.
His anger, once disciplined, flared unpredictably as the weight of deception grew heavier. The fear of exposure gnawed at him, manifesting as aggression and reckless confidence.
He pushed forward, convinced that momentum was protection, unaware that haste would leave fractures in even the most carefully constructed plan. His desire to eliminate Hayley entirely blinded him to the danger of underestimating her resilience. Lynette stood between them, her calculated calm beginning to crack. The alliance that once felt empowering now trapped her in a tightening vice. She understood that betrayal breeds betrayal, and aligning with Randy meant accepting that she could be next. The more she observed his volatility, the clearer it became that survival would require yet another choice, one that might demand sacrificing him as readily as she had sacrificed Hayley. The thought repulsed her, but fear overpowered hesitation. As Hayley processed the full scope of the conspiracy, something within her shifted. Rage no longer burned uncontrollably, it condensed into focus. She understood that brute force would not win this war. The only path forward required patience, misdirection, and a willingness to embrace the same ruthlessness her enemies had shown her. The realization was sobering. To survive, she would have to become someone even she no longer recognized. The conflict escalated without words, expressed through strategic absences, manipulated information, and decisions that subtly undermined trust. Every move carried the risk of exposure, and every hesitation threatened annihilation. The characters were no longer driven by ambition alone, but by the primal instinct to avoid becoming expendable. Each believed they were steering the outcome, unaware that the situation had evolved beyond anyone's control. What emerged was not a battle for wealth, but a confrontation with identity. Hayley faced the cost of her need for dominance. Randy confronted the emptiness beneath his rage. Lynette grappled with the realization that survival achieved through betrayal leaves no safe ground to stand on. All three were being driven toward a reckoning they could no longer delay. As the walls closed in, the air thickened with inevitability. No alliance remained stable, no loyalty unbreakable. Every character stood at the edge of a decision that would define not only who claimed Bill's legacy, but who would be destroyed in the process. In this game, victory no longer meant winning everything. It meant being the last one left standing, even if the price was becoming the very thing they once despised. As the story spirals towards its breaking point, the illusion of control finally collapses. What began as a calculated scheme transforms into a ruthless struggle, where every character becomes both hunter and prey. Hayley realizes that betrayal has stripped her of hesitation, forcing her to embrace a darker instinct she once feared. Randy's hunger for domination mutates into desperation, pushing him towards choices that can never be undone. Lynette, trapped between ambition and survival, discovers too late that every secret alliance carries the seed of destruction. The legacy Bill left behind is no longer a prize. It is a curse, poisoning every bond it touches. Trust is extinct, morality is expendable, and the past comes roaring back with a vengeance no one can escape. As the final moves are set in motion, one truth becomes terrifyingly clear. This game will not end with justice or redemption. It will end with ruin. And when the dust finally settles, the question will no longer be who won, but who is left standing after everything they were has been burned away.